Welcome back to the evening story shelf. Tonight, the story continues. Settle in and let the evening stay quiet. A Little Princess, A Gentle Evening Story, Part 2. Morning came to the boarding school in a slow, steady way. It did not arrive with birdsong. It arrived with a bell that rang once, then again, thin and clear, as if it were drawing a line through the air. Sarah opened her eyes in the grey light and lay still for a moment. The room was quiet, so quiet that she could hear the smallest sounds. A faint creak in the building, a distant footstep, the soft tick of something far away. For a few seconds she forgot where she was. Then she saw the unfamiliar ceiling above her, the pale walls, the narrow bed, and she remembered. London, the boarding school, the night before. Sarah turned her head and reached for Emily. The doll was beside her pillow, exactly where she had placed her. Sarah's fingers rested on Emily's sleeve. The smooth fabric felt comforting, not because Emily could do anything, but because Emily was familiar, because Emily had traveled across the sea with her, because Emily belonged to the part of Sarah's life that still felt like home. Sarah sat up slowly and drew in a quiet breath. She had promised her father she would be brave. And bravery, she reminded herself, did not always look like boldness. Sometimes it looked like getting up. Sometimes it looked like tying your ribbon neatly, even when your stomach felt strange. Sarah dressed carefully. She smoothed her stockings, fastened her buttons, straightened her collar. Her hands moved with practiced calm, though her thoughts drifted. In India, mornings had begun with warmth, air thick with scent, voices in the house calling softly from room to room. Here, the air felt crisp and pale. Here, people moved quietly, as if sound belonged only to the bell. Sarah took Emily in her arms and stepped into the corridor. The hallway was long and polished. The boards gleamed. Portraits watched from the walls with serious eyes. Somewhere down the hall, another girl's door opened. A whisper of movement, then another door. The school waking, piece by piece. Sarah followed the stream of girls toward the staircase. Miss Amelia stood nearby, guiding them gently with a soft voice. She smiled at Sarah as she passed. It was a small smile, but it eased something in Sarah's chest. Downstairs the house was warmer. The scent of tea and bread floated through the air. The dining room felt like a room designed for rules. Long tables, straight-backed chairs, girls in neat lines, as if the whole place were practicing how to be proper. Sarah hesitated at the doorway, only a moment. Then she stepped forward. She chose an empty seat and sat quietly. Emily rested in her lap beneath the table edge, hidden from view. Sarah's gaze moved around the room. Some girls glanced at her quickly and looked away. Others stared openly. There were whispers that rose and fell like little waves. One girl sat very straight, her posture confident, as if she were already certain of her place here. Her hair was carefully arranged, her expression composed, but sharp. Sarah remembered her from the day before, Lavinia. Lavinia's eyes travelled over Sarah's clothes, her hair ribbon, her calm face. Then Lavinia looked away as if Sarah were only mildly interesting. Breakfast began, tea was poured, bread was passed, a soft clink of spoons against dishes. Sarah ate slowly, tasting very little. Not because the food was unpleasant, but because her mind felt full of new sounds, new rules, new faces. The chair beside Sarah scraped softly against the floor. A girl slid into the seat with uncertain movements. Her cheeks were pink. Her hands fussed with her napkin. She seemed as if she were always on the edge of apology. She leaned towards Sarah and whispered quickly, as if she might lose courage if she waited. I'm Ermengarde. Sarah turned, her eyes gentle. I'm Sarah, she replied. Ermengarde glanced down towards Sarah's lap, where a corner of Emily's dress barely showed. Her expression brightened. You have a doll, she whispered with awe. Sarah's mouth curved into a small smile. Yes, she said. Her name is Emily. Ermengarde's eyes softened. She's very lovely, she said. Sarah lowered her voice. She listens very well, she added. Ermengarde gave a small, surprised laugh. It was the kind of laugh that sounded like relief, as if Sarah had said something kind without meaning to be impressive. Breakfast continued. Miss Minchin entered the room and paused near the head of the table. Her presence changed the air. The room grew quieter without anyone being told to hush. Miss Minchin's eyes moved slowly across the girls. She noticed Sarah at once, not because Sarah was loud, because Sarah looked like someone important, because Sarah carried herself in a way that suggested she had been loved. Miss Minchin's gaze lingered, then moved on. The girls finished their tea. Chairs scraped softly. A line formed. Lessons began. The classrooms upstairs were tidy and plain. Chalk and books, desks in rows, windows that let in a light too pale to feel cheerful. Sarah sat and listened. Her eyes stayed on the teacher, her hands folded neatly. The lesson moved from spelling to reading, from reading to French. When French began, Sarah's attention sharpened, not with fear, with familiarity. French sounded like something she already knew how to hold. The teacher asked her a question. Sarah answered calmly. Her pronunciation was careful, smooth, natural. The room changed again. Girls turned in their seats to look. A quiet surprise traveled around the desks. Miss Minchin, who had entered to observe, lifted her eyebrows. You speak very well, Miss Minchin said. Sarah inclined her head slightly. I learned in India, she replied. From my nurse. Miss Minchin's mouth softened into a smile, not warm, but pleased. Well, she said, that is fortunate. Sarah did not smile back too widely. She had noticed already that Miss Minchin's approval felt like a thing you could lose. The day continued. History was taught in measured tones. Arithmetic followed, neat and exact. Sarah answered when called upon. She never showed off, but she did not pretend to be less than she was. And that, Sarah sensed, could be its own sort of danger. When the bell rang for break, the girls flooded into the schoolroom. Some began to play. Some gathered into little circles, heads bent close. Some drifted toward the windows to look out at the street beyond the iron fence. Sarah sat near the window with Emily in her lap. She watched the light outside. The sky was the color of winter wool. The trees stood bare. A few flakes of something pale drifted down. Not quite snow, not quite rain. London was so different from India, so quiet in its own way. Ermengarde appeared beside Sarah, hovering as if unsure whether she was allowed to sit. Sarah shifted slightly, making room. Ermengarde sat down with a small sigh, as though her body had been holding itself tense all morning. I'm dreadful, Ermengarde whispered. Sarah turned her head. Dreadful? At lessons, Ermengarde said, I can't remember anything, and when the teacher looks at me, my mind becomes empty. Sarah considered this. She understood the feeling. Not exactly, but enough. I think, Sarah said softly, that your mind is not empty. I think it is simply frightened. Ermengarde blinked. I don't know how to fix it. Sarah looked down at Emily, then back at Ermengarde. Sometimes, Sarah said, it helps to imagine you are someone else, someone brave. Ermengarde's eyes widened. Like a princess, she whispered. Sarah smiled just slightly. Yes, she said. Or a soldier. Ermengarde looked puzzled. A soldier. Sarah nodded. My father says soldiers are brave, Sarah said. Not because they are never afraid, but because they keep going even when they are. Ermengarde swallowed. I'm afraid all the time, she admitted. Sarah's voice stayed gentle. Then you have many chances to be brave, she said. Ermengarde stared at her, as if no one had ever spoken to her like that, as if she had never considered that being afraid did not make her bad. It only made her human. Across the room, Lavinia watched them. Lavinia moved towards Sarah with practiced ease, as if she owned the space around her. So, Lavinia said, you've made a friend. Ermengarde stiffened. Sarah looked up calmly. I've spoken with someone, Sarah said. Lavinia's smile tightened. You speak as if you're very important, she said. Sarah did not react. I speak as if I am here, she replied, just like everyone else. Lavinia huffed softly. My mother says you are an heiress, Lavinia said. Sarah's hands rested lightly on Emily. I don't know what that means, Sarah said. I only know my father loves me. For a moment, Lavinia looked almost thrown off, as if she had expected Sarah to boast, or to deny, or to beg for approval. Instead, Sarah spoke as if love were the only thing worth mentioning. Lavinia recovered quickly. Well, she said, you won't always be Miss Minchin's favorite. Sarah's gaze remained calm. I don't need to be anyone's favorite, she said. I only need to behave properly. Ermengarde exhaled, as if she had been holding her breath. Lavinia's cheeks flushed. She turned away sharply, her shoes clicking against the floor. When she was gone, Ermengarde leaned closer. I thought she was going to say something awful, she whispered. Sarah's voice was very soft. She might, she said, but sometimes people say awful things because they are afraid too. Ermengarde looked uncertain. Afraid of what? Sarah paused. Then she answered honestly. Afraid of being small, she said. Afraid of being ordinary. Ermengarde stared. I would like to be ordinary, she confessed. Sarah smiled, kinder now. I think ordinary can be lovely, she said. The break ended. Lessons returned. The afternoon passed in steady lines. At last, as the day leaned toward evening, Miss Minchin sent for Sarah. The office was dimmer than the rest of the house, the furniture heavier, the curtains thicker, as if light had to ask permission to enter. Miss Minchin sat behind her desk and studied Sarah as one might study a new possession. You are settling in, she said. Yes, Sarah replied. Miss Minchin's eyes narrowed slightly. You are clever, she said, and your manners are very good. Sarah did not change her expression. My father taught me to be polite, she said. Miss Minchin tapped a finger against the desk. Your father has been generous, she said again. Sarah nodded. I am grateful, she said. Miss Minchin leaned forward, her voice taking on a tone that was almost sweet. We expect excellence here, she said. A girl in your position must set an example. Sarah listened carefully. She could feel that Miss Minchin wanted something. Not excellence, not goodness. Something else. Something like admiration. Sarah's voice remained quiet. I will do my best, she said. Miss Minchin blinked. The answer, again, was not quite what she wanted. Not submissive enough, not praising enough, not sparkling with gratitude. Miss Minchin's smile faded slightly. You may go, she said. Sarah left the office and walked slowly up the stairs. The hallway lamps were being lit. Evening made the corners of the house softer, and yet the school still felt like a place where softness was not encouraged. In her room, Sarah sat at the small table and wrote a letter to her father. She chose her words carefully. She did not want him to imagine her lonely. She did not want him to worry. She wrote about lessons, about the teachers, about London's grey skies. She wrote about Ermengarde, but only kindly, as if Ermengarde were simply a sweet companion. She did not mention Lavinia's sharpness. She did not mention Miss Minchin's office. She did not write the parts that made her stomach tighten. Instead, she wrote the kind of letter a father would like to receive. A letter that said, in a gentle way, "I am all right." When she finished, she folded it neatly. She placed it beside her bed. The evening grew quiet. Downstairs, the school settled. Footsteps softened. Doors closed. Voices faded. Sarah changed into her nightclothes and sat on the bed with Emily propped against the pillow. She opened the leather-bound book her father had given her. The pages smelled faintly of ink and leather. A comforting smell. A lasting smell. Sarah began to read, not hurriedly, not with excitement, but slowly, as if each word were a candle being lit. As she read, the room felt warmer, not in temperature, in feeling. Stories could do that. They could build a small, safe place inside the mind. Sarah glanced toward the window. The world outside was dark. London's lamps glowed like distant stars. She thought of her father across the sea. She imagined him sitting somewhere under a warm light. She imagined him smiling as he read her letter. Then she looked at Emily again. "If we imagine carefully enough," she whispered, "we can make a place feel gentler." She turned another page. The building creaked softly around her, as old houses do. Somewhere far below, a clock chimed. Sarah's eyelids grew heavier. The day had been long, but she had made it through, not by being loud, not by winning, but by staying steady, by being kind, by remembering who she was, even in a strange place. When she finally set the book down, she lay back against her pillow, Emily beside her, the letter to her father waiting on the table. Sarah took one slow breath, then another, and as the boarding school drifted into silence, Sarah drifted too, held for a little while by the quiet promise of stories. Thank you for listening to the Evening Story Shelf. This was a gentle retelling of A Little Princess. The story will continue in the next episode.